So thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a restful night. And thanks again to this wonderful organization. Today, I'm going to uh, address this question, basically. How can we make our professional life caring uh, or more caring despite the challenges that we have to face every day. Yesterday I heard wonderful presentations. I had the chance to speak with inspiring people who really put their hearts into what they're doing. So I hope I can talk with these people somehow and provide some idea, or we can work together on some ideas. This presentation is going to mix two books I recently published. One is The Ethics of Love, and the other one is Empathy and Ethics. The Empathy and Ethics is an edited book with wonderful contributions. The Ethics of Love, basically in this book I tried to overcome a little bit, the saying, if you do something out of love, even if the outcome is not good, but the intention is good, then it's going to be okay. Why did I decide to overcome this? Because I think we can do a little bit better than that. I mean, it's a little strange that at school we train our mathematical, logical, physical skills, but we rarely train our emotional skills, our ability to love. So in this book, I reflected on ethics as the discipline who can help us to love better. Like logic can be the discipline to help us to think better, right? And I applied this exercise on different scenarios of our daily life. And today I'm going to face one scenario, which is how do we exercise our empathy? How can we be empathetic in our professional life and do not feel depleted or do not feel too distant and so on. Let's see. So how are we going to proceed? I'm going to tackle the problem, I think, which was discussed a little bit yesterday from Ruth especially, the problem of numbers, costs, statistics. So how does it happen that often at work we become numbers? And the numbers becomes the truth, and then poof, we magically disappear. Then I'm going to discuss the problem of sense constitution. How do we make sense of our life, of what we do, of how we operate in our daily life? And then the problem of how empathy and ethics became a technology, more or less. Then I offer some solutions. I think, I don't know if they are solutions, but anyway, they are some ideas to think about. So let's start from the natural attitude. I'm going to frame all these paths within the phenomenological framework, especially Husserlian. In Husserl's phenomenology, the natural attitude is a very specific key term because it indicates basically that attitude in which we live life as if we have all the answers, as if we know everything without having to reflect too much about things. In the natural attitude, uh, there's a way of taking things as if they are true without any further argument. So the human being experiences the world as true without asking too many questions. Hence, what is true is just what is real, what I can touch, what I can see, and what is commonly accepted by everyone. What's the problem here? The problem is what we call irreality, what cannot be touched, what cannot be seen, that is taken for granted as unreal, as untrue, as distant from ourselves and others. And what's the consequence of that? Husserl says that at some in the history of philosophy, there was a moment in which we had to decide how we built our truths. And these truths were naturalized. In what sense? We need to take a little step back. We are immediately after the Middle Ages. The Bible was the main book on which we decided how to handle legal issues, medical problems, geographical notions. It was after the fire of Alexandria, the book. So Galilei was the smartest. We know what happened to the others before, but Galilei tried to explain knowledge and science in a way that was separated from the church. So he tried to come up with a knowledge of reality that was science-based. How did he do that? He said in Saggiatore that nature speaks a geometrical and mathematical language. So we don't have to bother the church, we don't have to bother religion if we want to know all that nature is saying. We just need to use a geometrical and mathematical language. So nature, reality, speaks to us through numbers. And then all the problems of the soul, all the problems of the human being and the spirits belongs to the church or other spiritual guidance. So the mathematical existence became the construction that we give for granted in this natural world. So the number was that reality, that construction that we consider as ideal. That is the problem of idealization, that what we encounter in this natural attitude, we take it for granted. We, in the sense that we don't question it is there. We say, okay, it is scientific because I can explain it through a mathematical and geometrical number, and that become the abstraction, the ideal. It becomes something perfect that we don't question. That's a problem. That's how the problem started, because then its followers, most famously Descartes, transformed this brilliant intuition, because it was brilliant. I mean, the intention, again, was incredibly good, because it emancipated us from just studying one book to gain our knowledge. But then his follower, Descartes, brought all this to a system. The famous res cogitans, res extensa, right? So science studies the res cogitans. Sorry, other way around. Science studies the res extensa, what is extended, the body, the material things, while religion mostly, because psychology wasn't that developed yet, is all focused on the res cogitans, and they are separated, and there's this pineal gland that theoretically should connect both, but there's a strict separation of body and mind. Thank you so much. And still today, I mean, when we go to a doctor, when we ask for some spiritual support, we see how our problems are either medicalized or psychologized. I mean, we are still fighting through this dichotomy. We are still trying to break through this strict division of body and mind. So what Husserl says is that we need to look at the sense making, at the way in which we live life as an intentional relationship. We live our world as embedded, as human beings embedded in the world, and creating, connecting with the world in a way that produces sense. And this sense does not necessarily need to be labeled as real, irreal. It's sense, and that's what matters. How does the sense is processed? We have, first of all, our body. I mean, we are embedded, embodied human beings. So we are here knowing that we have, I don't know, these hands, these legs, that our legs stand on this ground. And that allows us to perceive ourselves. And the double perception is the very beginning of everything, because it's through this kinesthesis, meaning aesthesis to kineos, the ability to perceive our movement, then we realize that we are something. We realize an idea that is immediate, that is there in our life. We realize the alterity, our first alterity. We become witness of our own life. And in that, we open to an intersubjective world. We host, we open ourselves to the others as primal others from us. And you can see how the isolation is already overcome. I mean, we are not truths, we are not being that we encounter and, okay, I know everything about you just because, yeah, you're there and you're fine, you're smiling, everything is good in your life, which is the humbleness you were talking about yesterday. I'm in this relationship, see, thank you. At the right time. I hope it comes back. Okay. We realize that we are transcendental individuals, meaning there will be always something that escapes my knowledge about you. There's always a field of questions, of research, of unknown that belongs to your presence and to mine, because we are like the picture we have for the conference, because we are in this interconnectedness. We are in this real intersubjective experience. And then in this field, in this environment, we arrive to objective knowledge. The objective knowledge is not encountered as something that is given for granted, because for my 10 years, see, 10 months old child, this might be, I don't know, a cup or we arrive at knowing something because of an intersubjective experience that is built day by day, layers by layers. So it is true, science provides numbers, provides objective knowledge, provides truths that are important, general, and useful for our community, but we cannot make a clear cut between objective knowledge and subjective experience. That would cut ourselves off from our life, from the way in which we connect with ourselves. It will transform us into an ideal, and the ideal is empty. Empathy. How does empathy fit into this picture? Empathy is an incredibly new concept. I mean, it came to us in 1903. More or less. Before we had the concept of Helios with Aristotle, so there was a sense of compassion. So I feel compassion for. And then in modern philosophy, this compassion, and the compassion was meant as a rhetoric skill, meaning I'm capable of perceiving what my audience, oh, grazie, how my audience is feeling, and then I know what to say and how to move my speech. So it was, if you want, a very cognitive notion. Then it became an aesthetic concept with Smith, Hume, Coleridge, and it became a way to understand how to perceive something. And it was with Vischer and then Lips that we started having empathy as Einfühlung, so the ability to feel one with someone else. So empathy became empathy as a psychological concept quite recently. How did we handle empathy? Poorly, I think. I mean, as it is today, empathy is often framed within the neuro mirror theory, which is fascinating. But again, it tends to cut in two parts. Yeah, our experience and the other, because according to this theory, we are empathetic because we can imitate the other. So we are at best a mirror. And clearly, when there's an empathetic connection, there's much more than that. I mean, the imitation, yes, happens, of course, but not necessarily as just as a reflex. It doesn't tend into a reflex. It doesn't tend there. Um, we don't want empathy to get caught into an ideal again. Edith Stein was one of the most famous in phenomenology to talk about empathy. And she emphasizes the intersubjective role of, sorry, it's still here, the intersubjective role of empathy, in the sense that she shows how when I connect empathetically with someone, I perceive the other as a primal other that is different from me, but then again is connected to me. When the other feels joy, I feel joy for that person. I am not that person feeling joy. I'm not imitating the joy of someone else. I feel joy for. So there's an intersubjective, if you want, interaffective connection with someone else. Uh, so here is to restate the problem. We don't want to frame ourselves in a theory that ignores the intentional relationship that connects subjects to their life world. We don't want to be caught, to get caught into an abstraction. So everything is perfect, everything is ideal, we are extremely effective, and we die inside. We experience burnout, we experience depression, which is what happens in most of professional lives, especially certain professions. We talk about compassion fatigue now, which is important to have brought this problem. And that happens when repeatedly at work we are asked to cut ourselves off from this intentional relationship, when we are asked to be professional. So, right, it's not about me, it's about the job. It's about being effective, being professional, not being you. We don't want you, we want the professional. And we work for more than half of our life. And if for more than half of our life we are not allowed to be ourselves, it's a long life to live. Yeah, so Husserl, in his Crisis of European Sciences, warns us against the mathematization of nature. I mean, we cannot mathematize, we cannot hide ourselves in numbers, in how effective, how many students I brought to my class, how many patients I visited in a day. But yet, that's what is asked from us. Um, so we don't want to become technology. What is technology? Let's spend the word on technology. I love the word technology. Well, I love Greek in general, but in particular, the word technology comes from the Greek titemi. And as you know, Greek has many words to express the nuances between different actions. And titemi is a way of saying I do that is way different from poiein, for example. Poiein is the verb that gives the root to poetry. So it's the doing, but in a creative way. Or pratein, okay, I do something, but is practical, it's pragmatic. While titemi, so techne, is a way of doing something in a reproductive way. So I'm capable of doing things in a series. I can copy if you want something. So technology is great. I mean, we need technology. We live on technology thanks to technology, but we cannot forget that technology is the way to reproduce something that has been created, something that has been produced through a creative action that was possible because we are human beings, because we are free. So when we use numbers for technology, we use a measurement that reproduces what was already there. So we are reproducing, if you want, a question. We are reproducing the beginning of a discovery, of a journey, and not the answer. That's the problem. Technology always is taken as the final answer, the natural attitude. So we have that number, we have that application. Now I'm collaborating with different programs that are creating applications, I don't know, in the justice system or in the medical system. And it's appalling to see how these applications are used instead of the human being to make more efficient, hence faster, quicker, the way in which we work. And yeah, I wonder what we do with the time that we save, because Netflix, probably. Anyway, and so in this process of general technologization, ethics too became a technology, right? I mean, I don't know about Italy today, but in the US, ethics often is taken as a guideline of professional, yeah, same everywhere. Professional principles to not get sued. So you ethics become this kind of armor that you put in front of you to proceed as a tank, and you don't get sued. You are the professional they want, meaning an impersonal human being that execute orders. And clearly, this kind of ethics doesn't raise any question, is again a set of principles based on idealizations, abstractions devoid of human intentions. The professional was, maybe it's here. Where did it go? Because this is the other slide. Anyway, here. The professional previously was the one who pro fateri, meaning was the one who could speak on behalf of the community. So, and before we are talking about the transition from Middle Ages to Renaissance, um, So the professional was a spiritual guidance who would take the responsibility of its community to speak on behalf of the community. It's a qui protetor, is the one who takes responsibility on behalf. Now, the professional is uh, an impersonal human being who responds on behalf of the company for whom he or she or they work, and the moral principle, the knowledge he or she takes responsibility for is completely absent. There's in fact no responsibility because we have the guidelines. So if you stick to the guidelines, you don't even have to bother about thinking of what kind of responsibility, right, you are going to give to certain things. Because there's a technology that is going to act in that way. So we find ourselves in a society in which, yeah, for example, Danziger points out how we create educational tests in which children or kids have to fit in, and not the other way around. The thing I was talking about yesterday to you. I mean, it's we want to transform our educational system in a set of standards like the guidelines in ethics, and the creativity, the infinite world of children that can be explored in multiple directions has to be closed into specific tests. In Italy, it's not as strong, but in the US, these educational tests are a big deal because you cannot access further education. So, I don't know, Durkheim notices how the professional values became the corporate values of the company for which you work, and the professional is the one who helps the company to gain more value, to gather more wealth. So Weber, for example, emphasizes how we see the transition from the Homo creative to the Homo economicus, so the human being who had to accumulate wealth. So how do we get out of it? I don't know clearly. Uh, that would be fantastic if I had an answer. Yet, I don't know, something along the lines of what Professor Mortari also was saying, caring action, right? I mean, the ability to be there, to reject as much as possible in our individual life this fear, because I mean, at least in my life, it shows up as fear to uh, to be always effective, to be always efficient, to be always on top of things. Because it might happen, like the case Ruth was talking about yesterday, that you have a student or a client who need a longer talk that day, and you want to spend time with this person, you want to engage into an intentional relationship with that. So phenomenology reframes empathy in those terms. Empathy creates, first of all, this perceptive pairing. So I perceive that in front of me there's a human being similar to me. So I suppose that this human being has the same body, the same, yeah, a similar structure as to mine. Then there's a reflexive revelation. Through this perceptive pairing, I understand something about myself. Even if this human being is impossible to understand, I can at least say that I don't understand. But in being able to say that I don't understand, you can help, for example, a suicidal student, which unfortunately happens quite often, at least in the US, I don't know here now, to talk. Because, okay, that I don't understand, but I'm here. So Do we want to continue in a conversation? Can I refer you to someone? But there's an empathetic connection, a reflexive revelation, and then a co-experiencing. That's the third step. From this, I can start trying to experience my world as connected to the world of the other person. I create an interaffective connection. I create, my world becomes bigger thanks to this connection. So I perceive something foreign, but this foreigner, yeah, will become part of my own life. So we want to become for each other's meanings, embodied meanings that are not taken for granted, that cannot disappear in numbers, that do not belong to a checklist, and that might require some time. And I know it's hard because our daily livelihood is based on how effective we are. But I think that being aware of this problem can already set us into an intentional attitude toward our professional other, let's call it this way, that is more meaningful and less draining. As some studies show, it's easier to suffer from burnout or compassion fatigue when the boundaries are not clear, and you feel more and more detached, yeah, distant from yourself, first of all, and the other people around you. It's this distance that you create between you and yourself that it's at the root of suffering. Husserl's ethics is an ethics entirely based on the values of love, of the values of self-responsibility. He says that after all, and here we connect again with Professor Mortari's presentation, what we do when we try to act in an ethical way is to be the best person we can be in that moment. And to be so, we follow values that do not obey, after all, if we are capable to connect with these values to a mathematical standards or objective guidelines that are pre-given from someone else. I mean, there's a world of instincts, emotions, feelings that guide our way of being in the world. And these love values are the values that are generated on a bodily cognitive level from this world of passivity and instinct feelings. So they are not abstract elements, they are not ideals, they are not perfect, but they are the values on which our responses to others can be based. So anyway, that's all. Thank you so much for listening.